Welcome to the RSI Trade of the Day. My name is Benjamin Poole, head trader here at Verified Investing. Okay, you guys, I have a action-packed show for you guys. I'm going to go over Microsoft that had earnings. I'm going to go over the recap of the day, the trade yesterday, kind of show you what happened with that, what I could have done a little bit differently, and guide you through that QS trade. I'm going to go over copper. Copper had a huge fall. I'm going to show you what was signaling to me in the RSI and how I was able to take almost a 12% profit on a 4% of our portfolio yesterday on this big drop, and it continues to fall. So I can show you where kind of some support levels are, and then we're going to go over Lululemon and then give you the trade of the day. So we got a lot of stuff to cover. The first thing that I want to cover, though, is obviously the trade of the day. Here was what happened. So QS, yesterday I gave the trade of the day. It was 900, looking at big stocks, $9 Pierce. So $8.98 was our entry price. I was actually looking for just a Pierce of the $9 even number. So what ended up happening? The price action on the RSI on a stronger stock broke below 40. And so I was anticipating this to get a nice bounce. So my stop out was a close below this low pivot at 781 on a 15-minute closing basis. So we're going to go to the 15-minute closing basis and look what happened. It closed right below 781. So we stopped out for $8.66 or at $8.66. So that was the stop out. And then it ended up doing a little bit of a rally and then sold off. So why did it bounce off this $8.49 level, and why should our level have been there instead? So what you do is you take a little pivot high at $10.04. You got a secondary pivot at $9.50. Then you draw a trend line that connects through these pivots, and look at this. It hits almost perfectly at $8.49. Let's see if there's any other additional support levels. That was pretty much the big support level aligned with the RSI price action. And so it actually hit off this level and actually made a pretty good rally into the end of the day, into the after hours action, and headed up back to $9.15. It still would not have gotten to our upside target of 3 to 5%. But that's kind of the idea behind this. I'm going to give you a stop out level, give you an idea of why things are supposed to be pulling back or going forward. And so the trade of the day today is going to be a continuation play from yesterday, the nice RSI action into some resistance. And so we're going to have a short. So now let's go ahead and go into our next chart. We're going to go over copper. Copper had a big down move yesterday. So this is what the RSI was telling me. So anytime I look at the RSI with the relative strength index, it is a movement oscillator, meaning that you need price oscillation as well as the RSI oscillation. The price oscillation is going to oscillate the relative strength index. But if you don't have that, it's really a no-touch stock. And I'm going to get into why that is and how I went wrong yesterday. So this is again the chart of copper. You had this nice RSI oscillation in copper. My average price was right about here. We ended up taking about a 12% victory on this because look at this price action. I was out of the money about 12%, but then it ended up dropping. Based on the fact that the RSI started to get oversold on the copper chart, it got up to $77 or 77 on the RSI after this big run, a little bit of price consolidation, pushed up a little bit higher, and then you have this big fall. So this is what you look for, right? You look for extended moves, you look for into resistance. Even if it pierces resistance, it doesn't mean that the RSI has failed quite yet. It just means that there should be a pullback based on the fact that it's overbought. And then so you just set yourself up and wait for a potential pullback. All right, let's go into Microsoft. So again, remember the RSI is a price oscillation, or it's a movement oscillator. So check out the chart of Microsoft. And I try to do a pretty good job of sticking with my own rules and saying, all right, well, if this doesn't have price oscillation, then the RSI isn't going to oscillate and things can stay overbought for an extended period of time. So here's the chart of Microsoft. You had this last earnings report on April 30th. You had this big up move, and then look at price action. You get a 1% pullback and then a 5% move higher, 1%, 2% pullback, a 7% move higher, a little bit of a 1% pullback, another little 2% pullback. And look at the relative strength index. It stays above 70 for an extended period of time with no big red sell candles, meaning that the RSI is going to stay above 70 for an extended period of time. For over 3 months, pretty much Microsoft has stayed in the relative strength index. So I got excited. I said, all right, you've got this price action that's got this upward trajectory. All right, so it's hit this upsloping trend line. It should favor a pullback. And you've got this negative RSI divergence starting from this pivot to this pivot. So what should happen? You look at the chart and you say, all right, well, based on the fact that it's been oversold for as long as it has, and it's gotten its negative divergence, you got this upsloping trend line. So I went ahead and shorted this into earnings. And then price action ended up heading higher because I was looking at it and thinking, you know what? There's a lot of factors that are aligning. It's super extended, and the earnings report's probably factored into the earnings report, the price action, excuse me. So this favors a pullback. Again, what I didn't calculate was the oscillation in the relative strength and the price action. And so then it headed higher. Let's take a look at Microsoft now. Go to the 1 minute on the Microsoft chart. We're up to 559. So it got up to as high as 562 in the after hours. So this is a situation where I have to repeatedly learn from it. This is part of trading, right? So you got to figure out what worked, what didn't, and then readjust what you just did. Even though you've got these rules in place, sometimes trades just go against you. You get overly excited, whatever it is. And so that's kind of what happened here. It favored a move down. Price action decided it wanted to go higher. And so now it's trading at 560. All right. So let my lesson be your saving grace. Look for volatile stocks when you're playing the RSI. All right. Now let's go ahead and go into LULU. Lululemon has this guy, nice positive RSI divergence on the daily time frame. And this was actually giving a little bit more volatility. So you have in these 13 to 15% moves. You can see right here, it's doing a much better job of respecting the RSI. After it pierced 30, got down to 23, it then had this bounce. And so now if it comes in to the $200 level, this would be a great opportunity to pick this up for a swing trade. You got these pivot highs right at 205. It's trading at 206. Or close at 206, pivot high right here. But what we're looking at is the $200 even number, and then this green bar candle and this minor gap fill. The price action of Lululemon can actually head lower. And so if you were going to get into this for a swing trade, your possibility of adding to the position would be around $180 at this point, because the relative strength index is actually moving quite nicely with the price action is respecting the RSI. This gives us a good opportunity to play that $200 even number, Pierce. All right, so now let's go ahead and get into HIMS. HIMS is going to be the trade of the day. So the first trade that I showed you, the RSI on the chart for SMCI stayed above 30 the entire day. So you have this good price action, nice relative strength index, and then it doesn't get above 30. It stays at above 30 and gets to the oversold condition, or overbought condition. Now it headed higher, breaking out of this move at 66.42. So my trade of the day is actually going to be a short. you want to wait until it gets into resistance. And so my next resistance level is 67.37 with a gap fill at 68.74. So when I've seen this play out in the past, price action has actually gone higher the following day and pierced some levels. And so I'm actually expecting it to pierce the 67.37 level and head all the way up to that gap fill at $68.74. That will only be about a 5% move. And usually I look for bigger moves. But when I get the price consolidation, the relative strength staying above 30, that to me is telling me that eventually it's going to sell off. And so we're going to look for about 3 to 5% on a pullback. So again, here is the entry price. 68.74 is my trade of the day, with a downside target of about 3 to 5%. For those of you who are more aggressive, you could start a position at 67.37 and possibly add at 68.74 and then take 1.5 to 2% instead of 3 to 5%. So that's my trade of the day. And I will be on tomorrow to recap this. If you guys want a little bit more of this information, if you like what you're hearing, then come back in tomorrow at 8:45 a.m. And please make sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned, because Gareth is going live with the game plan in less than 4 minutes. So we'll see you guys there. Take care.